Well, people would often ask, or think I was doing something to them. Like in the healing, I was healing them. And so I came up with an explanation of why that wasn't actually really what was happening. And this use of the hand explanation is taking it further than how I have shared it before. So if you've heard this before, what I'm going to share is there's more. So the way I spoke about it in the past was, if the whole hand, let's say the whole hand is God or the totality, it's one thing, one thing. And that each finger is a person, that the person gets to have an individual experience, gets to see themselves as separate from the other finger, right? But they're actually the whole hand. And so in the healing work, consciousness here just opened itself to here, so then it's functioning from the hand. So it looks like this finger is doing something to that finger. It may be true that this finger is resonating with the truth of this at a higher awareness or consciousness or a greater amplitude than this finger, but it still recognizes it's all one thing. And so it's not that something is being done from here to here. There's the deep truth that's resonating here. It's like then the deep truth starts to wake itself up and resonate here. What I want to add to this is the surrendering through I am, and the different fabrics of embodiment. So your physical body is one fabric. Your soul is another fabric. They function, there are differences in the way that they function. They all have an individual expression, at the same time are in oneness with the plane or the dimensional frequency or game board or plane of existence that they appear within. So your body looks like it's a separate thing. Looks like it's a separate thing walking around in this plane. Your body is made of air, oxygen, water, minerals. It's made of the stuff of this plane. Your body is not separate in any way. You're breathing oxygen all the time. If you stop, you're not going to do so well, right? So this is just an example of how we get to have the illusion of separateness, when the substance, it's made of the exact same substance. So if I use my hand, and say this top joint is your personality, your body, your human body. This middle joint is your soul body. This joint here, this bone is your God self, and the hand is God. So just using this as a way of trying to explain something. So for me, surrendering, and each of these has their own sense of I am of integrity. The I am of the personality has this memory bank of this lifetime, right? Has the sense of itself, its integrity on this level. The soul has its own sense of self. The sense of self, that self includes, it's inclusive of all the lifetime experiences. It's one I am with all those experiences of the soul. So it's a sense of one, it's a one I am. The same way in you, as your personality, you have one sense of I am. It's just me. I'm different than my person sitting next to me. This is my container, even though that container is actually completely inseparable from the whole field. So the soul level functions that way too. And the soul has its experience of its container, my soul, my lifetimes, my soul plan with other souls, but it is also one inseparable from the substance that makes that whole plane. That is also true on the God self level. An individuated sense of self that has its purpose, divine exploration, unfolding, creative powers, creative capacity, individuated nature, but also as oneness with that whole plane. I have not opened beyond God to say anything about that. But in the experiences of God, there's a recognition of the God self that's created feels like a child of God. It's the creative capacity that God is, and that ripples through or manifests through each of these layers of self with purpose and creation and exploration and experience and evolution and joy. So, and it's all one I am, right? It's one single I am that then has these vehicles, these contained vehicles that it gets to experience through. So the whole thing is one I am. The whole plane is one I am. When you open to that, the I am of that whole plane, you are it. And that's where all these cities or extra sensory gifts come from, because it's all you. And so opening through the oneness of that plane, it's your body then. And your body functions and has a different skill set and different purpose and I don't know, I want to say illuminatory capacity. You know, so it's like then the light of truth, the light of existence, the light that's prior to these dimensional bodies, then can move fluidly, shine thoroughly through the whole system. And so illumination or enlightenment, right, is this deeper truth of being that's dimensional body frequency is light. So that I am is the same I am as everything else. So for me, there was a fluidity, the breaking or the seeing through that lens, that sense of self as Kristin, the seeing through that lens to the I am of all these different aspects is what's happened here, where there's a fluidity through both the vertical line, this way, right, the vertical line of all these layers of oneself to the totality, and then there's also been a permeability of these containers of sense of self through the horizontal, through the manifestation, through the sphere, you know, through the layers of creation. And that sense of I am, so yeah, maybe more simply, right, the I am feels the same. The me, that qualitative feeling of me, I am, it's the same everywhere you go. When you open to any part, it's the same I am. It still feels like the same truth of the truth in the personality, the truth in the soul, truth in the light body, truth of the whole plane, truth of God. What's different is the quality of the vehicle that's being perceived from. So because it's a different exploration that the universe is doing. So the quality of seeing through your personality and having access to this life feels one particular way in the midst of being one I am. When you open to the soul level and start having access to that memory, it's the same I am. It is still going to feel like, oh my God, it's me. I'm still here. You know, I'm still here. It's the same me, but the whole vehicle you're seeing through a different resting point of consciousness, a different vehicle of expression and experience and exploration. The point, I was checking our time. So the reference point so I want to address this experience of cessation, of that feeling of annihilation, like as one starts to move closer to seeing through a lens, it can sometimes feel like you're going to die, or that sense of annihilation, or that, what I use the word cessation, of a surrendering of existence. It feels like you're surrendering your existence. What it looks like to me is happening, and is consistently so far seems to be true, is if we use this hand example again, if we say the joint is the cessation point where there's a sense of non-existence, and then what's happening is that consciousness, the envelope that's been created for your experience in any one of these planes, that envelope is supposed to have integrity. It is supposed to form itself for one single consciousness to have multiple experiences. So you have to have a container to be able to tell yourself, to tell the difference between you and someone else. And I call that sense of self envelope. And that, it's supposed to be there. That's how this whole brilliant thing is being orchestrated. And it's happening with the plant, right? The plant outside knows itself as itself, which is how it can then keep the bugs out of it. Or if it's out of balance, it'll draw the bugs because that's the play that's happening. Same thing for you in getting a cold or an infection. That there's a divine play that's happening. This is another whole topic. This will be another call we'll do maybe at some point, but around that integrity and health and imbalance and the perfection of imbalance in terms of the movement forward of creation and evolution and karma and all of that. But in terms of this envelope, the reason I brought that up is just saying, like, that's how everything functions. The wood on the wall here knows itself as wood, right? There's the consciousness is playing this game everywhere. And that in your inner pathway of awakening, the sense of I am is supposed to have this vehicle and have that sense of integrity. And as human beings, we can experience that sense of integrity as a safety mechanism for physical survival. It's part of the instincts that have happened due to the collapsing nature of the contraction that has been happening and the fear-based lifetimes that we've had and the fear-based kind of cultures and experience in the universe that we've been creating and co-creating, which has its own perfection in it. So, and so when you meet this envelope of the sense of self, it's hard to like pierce through that. It's hard, right? I get it. And that's what we're all sort of like up against, is like, wait a minute, it's just one me, but how do you surrender through this thing? So, but in terms of a map, each of these joints, right, is one of those cessation points where the I am of this envelope surrenders its perspective. It surrenders the mind that it's seeing through. It surrenders the emotions it's feeling through. It surrenders its capacity to track itself. It surrenders its will. All of that gets surrendered. So it's a significant surrendering to that cessation, and then opens up opens up, because it's one I am that's seamless through the whole thing, creating these lenses. So all that you're doing is shifting from one aperture of like a camera. If the focus is smaller in here, and then you're just opening to a larger aperture. But often it can have that sense of dying or death. So that feeling of dying, I would just encourage to not be afraid of. To not be afraid of that. It's just part of the experience. And you fortunately had a ton of experience because you've died in human bodies a zillion times. So you already know how to die. And part of what happens is that those feelings can get tripped up, and it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Yes, you're gonna die. We're all gonna die. This gorgeous body you are in now is going to die. This body is going to die. And it's just an embracing of the brilliance of the design.